Welcome to Influence Syc, where knowledge meets influence. Today, we're diving into one of the greatest identity mysteries of the 20th century. It's a story of royalty, revolution, and a woman who convinced the world she was a lost princess. For decades, she was known as Anastasia Romanov, the surviving daughter of the last Tsar of Russia. But was she really the princess, or the most successful imposter in modern history? This is the strange, haunting tale of the fake Anastasia, the Romanov mystery that fooled the world. The year was 1917. Russia was collapsing under the weight of war, hunger, and revolution. Tsar Nicholas II, his wife Alexandra, and their 5 children Olga, Tatiana, Maria, Anastasia, and Alexei were imprisoned by the Bolsheviks after the monarchy was overthrown. In the dark, early hours of July 17, 1918, in a damp basement in Yekaterinburg, the entire Romanov family was brutally executed. Their bodies were taken to a remote forest, hidden, burned, and buried in a secret mass grave. The reign of the Romanovs had ended in blood and secrecy. But when the shocking truth of their fate emerged years later, one persistent rumor refused to die. One of the daughters survived, and that's where the legend of Anastasia truly began. Fast forward to 1920, just 2 years after the execution. In Berlin, a young woman was pulled from the Landwehr Canal after a suicide attempt. She was taken to a mental asylum, but she refused to reveal her name or anything about her past. For months, she was simply called for Uline and Beacon, the unknown woman. Then, one day, she saw a picture of the Tsar's family in a newspaper. She began to have flashbacks, to remember a life of incredible privilege and unimaginable horror. Finally, she made a shocking claim. She was Grand Duchess Anastasia Nikolaevna Romanov. The youngest daughter of the Tsar, she claimed that she had survived the massacre, shielded by her sisters' bodies, and was rescued by a sympathetic guard who helped her escape Russia under a false identity. Her story was electrifying, and it spread like wildfire across a world still reeling from the war. The 1920s and 30s were obsessed with royal drama, and the Romanovs' tragic end was still a fresh, open wound when people saw this mysterious woman, pale, fragile, yet with an intelligent, piercing gaze that seemed eerily similar to Anastasia's. Many desperately wanted to believe she was real. She became known as Anna Anderson. Romanov relatives, former servants, and childhood friends came from all over Europe to meet her. The reactions were deeply divided. Some swore she was Anastasia. They said her gestures, her eyes, her intimate memories of the royal palace, and the specific scars on her body were too precise to be faked. How could anyone know those tiny details? But others were just as convinced she was a fraud. They pointed to inconsistencies. She spoke Russian with a noticeable Polish accent, and her memory, while sharp in some areas, sometimes contradicted known facts about the family. Still, the allure of a surviving princess was too powerful. Newspapers and wealthy aristocrats funded her life. For nearly 60 years, Anna Anderson lived as royalty in exile, a living legend supported by a powerful network of believers. Her claim wasn't just a matter of public opinion, it became a legal battle. It led to one of the longest-running court cases in German history, famously known as the Anastasia case. From 1938 all the way to 1970, German courts debated one question: was Anna Anderson truly the lost Romanov princess and heir to a potential fortune? Witnesses for both sides presented compelling, but ultimately contradictory, evidence. No definitive proof ever emerged from the trials. But her supporters, including members of Europe's nobility who had known the Romanovs personally, refused to let go of their belief. The mystery consumed her entire life. She moved from country to country, eventually marrying an American professor and adopting a new name, but she was always surrounded by the myth and controversy she had created. Even after she passed away in 1984, many people still believed she was the real Anastasia, taking her secret to the grave. Then came the one thing Anna Anderson never lived to see: the rise of modern DNA testing. This was the scientific key that would finally unlock the mystery. In 1991, following the collapse of the Soviet Union, the long-hidden remains of the Romanov family were discovered in a forest outside Yekaterinburg. DNA tests confirmed that the bones belonged to the Tsar, the Tsarina, and 3 of their daughters. But 2 of the children, Alexei and 1 of the girls, were missing, which for a time kept the Anastasia legend alive. However, in 2007, the final 2 sets of remains were found in a separate grave nearby, and DNA testing confirmed the deaths of all the Romanov children, including Anastasia. So, who was Anna Anderson? Scientists were able to test a tissue sample from her that had been preserved in a hospital. The results were conclusive. She had absolutely no genetic relation to the Romanovs or their royal relatives. The DNA matched that of a Polish factory worker named Franziska Szankowska, who had a history of mental illness and had disappeared after suffering a head trauma during a factory explosion in World War I. The truth was finally clear. The real Anastasia died in that basement in 1918. The princess who had fooled the world was an ordinary woman who, perhaps through trauma, had come to believe her own incredible lie. But even after the definitive DNA evidence, the myth of Anastasia refused to fade. It was just too good a story. Movies, books, and even a beloved animated fairy tale continued to romanticize her as the lost princess, a powerful symbol of hope that even in the darkest tragedies, miracles could happen. It's a story we all wanted to be true. But behind that beautiful fairy tale was a much darker reality, a story about trauma, mental health, identity, and a world so desperate to cling to the glamour of lost royalty that it was willing to believe a fantasy. Anna Anderson may not have been Anastasia, but her extraordinary story revealed something deep and profound about our collective human need for hope, for belonging, and for a little bit of mystery in a cold, hard world. The Romanovs are gone, their dynasty brought to a brutal end. But the legend of Anastasia lives on, not because she survived, but because the world so desperately wanted her to. The fake Anastasia fooled kings, courts, and journalists for decades. But perhaps in her own mind, lost in a world of trauma and fractured memories, she wasn't lying at all. Perhaps she truly believed she was that little girl who miraculously escaped the bullets in the night. If you love exploring royal mysteries, lost empires, and the hidden sides of history, make sure you subscribe to Influence Syc, where knowledge meets influence. And don't forget to visit our PayHip bookstore for thought-provoking history and children's books that bring forgotten stories back to life. The link is in the description below. Thanks for watching.